Hi there, my name is Anna, and I want to share a story that completely changed the way I approached learning English. If you've ever felt nervous about speaking in front of others or struggled to find the right words, you're not alone. I've been there too. A few months ago, I decided to join a local book club. My goal was to practice English by discussing books with native speakers and other learners. It sounded exciting, but honestly, I was terrified. What if they didn't understand me? What if I made mistakes? These thoughts kept swirling in my mind. But I also knew that stepping out of my comfort zone was the only way to grow. So I grabbed my favorite notebook, wrote down some key phrases I thought might be useful, and walked into that meeting room with a mix of fear and determination. Today, you're going to learn English through this story of my first book club experience. Together, we'll explore new words, phrases, and tips that will help you gain confidence in real-life conversations. So, don't forget to turn on the subtitles, follow along, and repeat the phrases we'll practice. Let's dive in. It was a warm evening in early spring. The book club met in a cozy little library tucked away in the heart of the city. As I stepped through the wooden door, the scent of old books and freshly brewed coffee filled the air. Soft murmurs of conversation surrounded me as members gathered around a large round table. I scanned the room nervously, clutching the novel we were supposed to discuss, an English classic called Pride and Prejudice. Most of the members were already seated, flipping through their books or sipping from mugs. They seemed so at ease, chatting with one another like old friends. "Hi, you must be new here." A cheerful woman in her 30s approached me with a warm smile. Her name was Lisa, the group's organizer. "Welcome to the book club. What's your name?" I hesitated for a second, then said, "My name is Anna. This is my first time." Lisa nodded encouragingly. "Don't worry, we're all here to share and learn. Just relax and enjoy the discussion." I took a seat and observed the group as Lisa introduced me. There was Ethan, a friendly college student who seemed full of energy. Margaret, an elderly woman with a gentle voice who loved poetry. And Jake, a quiet but thoughtful man who appeared deeply engaged with the book in front of him. As the meeting began, Lisa asked everyone to share their thoughts about the first few chapters of Pride and Prejudice. My heart raced. What would I say? Could I explain my ideas clearly? I quickly realized that many members used simple phrases to express their opinions. Ethan said, "I like Mr. Darcy because he is mysterious," while Margaret added, "Elizabeth Bennet is very strong and independent." Their sentences were straightforward yet effective. I jotted down useful words and expressions in my notebook, like, because, independent, strong. These seemed practical and easy to remember. Then it was my turn. All eyes turned to me, and I felt a lump in my throat. Taking a deep breath, I said slowly, "I think Elizabeth is smart and brave." To my surprise, everyone smiled and nodded. "You're absolutely right," Lisa said. "Elizabeth is very smart and brave." "Great point." My confidence grew slightly as the meeting continued. The discussion deepened as the book club moved on to analyzing key scenes. I listened carefully, still hesitant to speak up again. But something about the dynamic was starting to feel less intimidating. People weren't just sharing opinions, they were asking questions, debating, and even laughing at misunderstandings. Then came a pivotal moment. Lisa held up her copy of the book and said, "There's a part I'd love to focus on today. It's the conversation between Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy during the proposal scene. Let's read it aloud." Lisa turned to the group and assigned lines. "Ethan, you can be Mr. Darcy. Anna," she looked at me, smiling warmly. "Would you like to read Elizabeth's part?" My heart pounded. "Me?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "Yes," Lisa said, her tone encouraging. "Don't worry about pronunciation. We'll take it slow." Everyone looked at me expectantly, and I felt like I had no choice but to try. I opened my book to the marked page, my hands trembling slightly. Ethan began, adopting a formal tone. "In vain I have struggled. It will not do. My feelings will not be repressed. You must allow me to tell you how ardently I admire and love you." A small chuckle rippled through the room at Ethan's dramatic delivery. It lightened the mood, and I couldn't help but smile. Then it was my turn. I read, stumbling slightly. "You are too hasty, sir. I have every right to resent your proposal." "Great start," Lisa interrupted gently. "Let's pause for a moment. The word resent means to feel angry or upset about something. It's pronounced like this: resent. Try it with me." "Resent," I repeated, feeling a bit more confident. "Perfect. Now continue." As we went through the dialogue, Lisa and the group patiently helped me with tricky words and expressions. Phrases like "in vain" and "ardently admire" were explained with simple examples. Lisa said, "If you love something passionately, like chocolate or sunsets, you can say you ardently admire it." Gradually, I started to feel more at ease. The room buzzed with encouragement every time I finished a line. Even when I made mistakes, no one laughed. Instead, they offered kind corrections, like Margaret saying, "It's okay, dear, just try again." By the time we finished the scene, I realized I had read aloud in English for the first time in front of a group. And while it wasn't perfect, it was a breakthrough for me. Lisa clapped her hands together. "Amazing work, everyone. Especially Anna. It's not easy to read aloud in a new language, but you did fantastic." "Yeah, you were great," Ethan added with a thumbs up. "Thank you," I said shyly, but inside I felt proud. The meeting ended with a lively discussion about the themes of pride and prejudice in the story. I chimed in a few times, using simple phrases I'd learned from listening to others. Each time, I gained a little more confidence. As we packed up to leave, Lisa handed me a small notebook. "Here," she said, "it's a vocabulary journal. Use it to write down words or phrases you learn each week." "It's helped a lot of people in the group. Thank you so much," I said, genuinely touched. Walking home that night, I felt something shift inside me. For the first time, I didn't feel alone in my struggle to learn English. As I walked home, I replayed the evening's events in my mind. Each word and phrase lingered like a melody I was learning to hum. The experience had been more than just an exercise in reading. It was a lesson in confidence, connection, and communication. The vocabulary journal Lisa gave me became my new companion. That night, I sat at my small desk and opened its crisp blank pages. I began jotting down the words I'd learned during the meeting, one by one. Resent, to feel upset or angry about something unfair. Example, I resent when people interrupt me. In vain, without success. Example, I tried to fix the clock, but it was in vain. Ardently admire, to deeply respect or love something. Example, I ardently admire my favorite author's books. Each entry came with an example sentence, sometimes inspired by my own life, other times drawn from what I remembered people saying during the discussion. I noticed patterns too. Phrases like in vain were often used with verbs like try or hope. The more I wrote, the more I understood how the pieces fit together. The next day, I decided to practice what I'd learned. I sat in front of my mirror, pretending I was back in the book club. Holding my book like a script, I read aloud the same lines from the proposal scene. In vain I have struggled, I said, imitating Ethan's dramatic tone. I smiled at my reflection. You are too hasty, sir. I have every right to resent your proposal, I continued, this time more smoothly. As I practiced, I realized how much repetition helped. The phrases felt less foreign, and my pronunciation improved little by little. I even caught myself enjoying the process, imagining how Elizabeth Bennet must have felt as she stood up to Mr. Darcy. The following week, I brought my vocabulary journal to work. During my lunch break, I tried to use the new words in simple sentences. When a coworker asked how my English classes were going, I said, I ardently admire my teacher. She is very helpful. They laughed warmly. Wow, that's a fancy word. But you used it perfectly. That small validation felt like a win. Each time I practiced, I built not just my vocabulary, but also my confidence. The journal also became a tool to track my progress. Each new page reminded me of how far I'd come. The lessons from the book club weren't just about words. They were about bravery, effort, and the joy of learning. Inspired by the progress I had made, I decided to take my learning a step further. With Lisa's advice echoing in my mind, I created a small challenge for myself to actively use the phrases and words I'd learned during the week in real-life situations. On my way to the grocery store, I rehearsed a few sentences quietly. For example, I practiced how I might ask for help finding an item. Excuse me, could you assist me? I've been searching for this in vain. As I stood in front of the bread aisle, I decided to put my practice into action. Spotting a store clerk, I approached nervously. Excuse me, I began, my heart racing slightly. I've been looking for whole grain bread in vain. Could you help me find it? The clerk smiled warmly. Of course. It's just over here. Relief washed over me as I followed them. I'd done it. I'd used a phrase from my journal in a real conversation. That evening, I added a few more notes to my journal. Beside in vain, I wrote, used successfully at the grocery store. The sense of accomplishment was immense, and it made me eager to continue. To make my practice more engaging, I started playing a game with myself. Each day, I set a goal to use at least 3 new expressions in conversation. One evening at the book club, Lisa proposed a similar idea. Why don't we all practice using a phrase from Pride and Prejudice during this week's discussion? We all agreed. For me, it was a golden opportunity to showcase my progress. When it was my turn to speak, I referred to Mr. Darcy's letter, saying he ardently admired Elizabeth, but his pride clouded his actions. The room erupted in smiles. "Well said," Ethan exclaimed. "You captured the essence perfectly." These moments of interaction became the cornerstone of my learning journey. I also encouraged my book club friends to help me practice by pretending to have many conversations outside of the weekly meetings. Lisa, ever supportive, took this idea further. She suggested role-playing scenarios like ordering at a cafe or asking for directions. In one instance, she pretended to be a waiter, and I practiced saying, "I would resent being served cold tea, but could you please help me choose a dessert?" We laughed so much that I barely noticed how naturally the phrases were beginning to feel. These small, playful exercises made all the difference. They reminded me that learning English wasn't just about studying, it was about living, connecting, and enjoying the process. Looking back on my journey, I couldn't believe how much progress I had made. Joining the book club hadn't just helped me learn English, it had transformed my confidence, my social life, and my perspective on learning. Lisa's advice to connect language with something I loved had been a game changer. Reading stories like Pride and Prejudice had not only enriched my vocabulary, but also my appreciation for English literature. I found joy in the process, and that made all the difference. My weekly journal became a cherished habit. It wasn't just a record of new words and phrases, it was a testament to my growth. Seeing phrases like "in vain," "ardently," and "clouded his actions" scribbled with notes about where I'd use them filled me with pride. But the real highlight was the relationships I had built. The book club members had become more than study partners. They were my friends and cheerleaders. Together, we laughed, learned, and shared stories that brought us closer. As I shared my journey with others, I realized something important. Learning a new language isn't just about mastering grammar or memorizing words. It's about connecting with people, with stories, and with your own potential. So my final message to you is simple. Find what you love and use it as your guide. Whether it's books, movies, or music, let your passion lead the way. Be patient with yourself, celebrate small victories, and remember that every little step counts. And most importantly, don't be afraid to make mistakes. As Lisa often reminded me, mistakes are proof that you're trying, and trying is what leads to success. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Now, it's your turn. Go out there, take the first step, and embrace the adventure of learning English. You can do it.